Well, hey there, music fans. This is Eric Anderson, the drummer with Ron Rogers and the Last Chance Saloon, and an instructor here at Grace Note Music Studios in Visalia, California. There's a video that I put out not long ago called Stick Facts, and it discusses 3 basic fundamental facts that apply to every single drumstick. This video is going to pick up where Fact 3 left off, which is every stick has a sweet spot. It's also known as a fulcrum. Today what we're going to look at is actually the thumb and the index finger and how they actually hold the stick so that the stick can bounce as much as it possibly can. Now before we actually get into that, I want to drive home this point about keeping your hands loose on the stick, which is all about what the thumb and the index finger need to do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little sound check here. And what I mean by that is I'm going to play these sticks 12 times. I'm going to click them together. The first 4 are going to be with both of my hands as loose and light on the sticks as they can possibly be. The second 4 are going to be as tight as they can possibly be, and then the third 4 clicks will be loose once again, so that you can hear the difference between what loose sticks and what tight sticks sound like. So without anything more being said, here we go. 4 loose, 4 tight, 4 loose. Here goes. If you heard the difference in the sound quality, that's the difference between hands that are loose on the sticks, hands that are tight on the sticks. I want to share this with you real quick before I get on with playing the sticks. When you hear that tight sound, I want you to understand that what you are hearing is money. Money that you're going to spend on cracked cymbals, busted drum heads, sticks that split and fall apart a lot quicker, and candidly, injuries if you continue to do that over an extended period of time. So that sound of tight, if that's the way that your hands are playing, I strongly encourage that you loosen up your thumb and your index finger starting today to save yourself some money and to save yourself some grief as far as injuries are concerned. But with that being said, I want to show you this little something about the thumb and the index finger. It's an interesting thing. It's kind of like the physics or the physiology of how the thumb and the index finger work in relationship to playing the stick. So check this out. Right, I'm going to lay one of my sticks right here on the pad. I'm just going to have it sitting right here like this. Now I am going to take my camera here, right, and I'm going to set it up here like this. And what I want you to see is this. Take a really close look at my hand. You can see it there, right? You'll notice that with my hand in this position, if I try to move my index finger towards the stick, there's very, very little motion that I can get. But you'll see that when I move my thumb, that I can push my thumb all the way over to the stick and even get the stick to conform to the shape of the other 3 fingers. Now if we set our thumb and our index finger right there at that fulcrum of the fulcrum of the stick, and you keep that thumb as loose as you possibly can on the stick, what you'll wind up seeing is when the stick is played, it naturally bounces up on its own. You notice how my hand is staying low as the stick is bouncing up on itself. That my hand is not picking up the stick, but it is allowing the stick to bounce back up on its own. Now taking this at a faster speed, I'm going to start playing a little bit with the wrist at this slower tempo. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of float this camera around so you can watch the stick and the back fingers and how they play the stick. So just kind of follow along and check this out from under the hand. And you can see that those back fingers are actually much more involved in driving the stick. Now this is where it gets really cool. The faster you start to go with those back fingers driving the stick, the cool thing is the hand, the wrist pretty much becomes absolutely motionless. There's a little bit of motion in response to the stick movement, but it's not the wrist that's actually driving the stick now, but it's actually strictly the fingers. So coming back to the front now, and you take a look at it, you can really see from under the side, from under here, you can see that it's predominantly the fingers that are doing work. You them over the top, and you notice the hand really is not moving that much at all. That, my friends, is exactly why it is very beneficial to keep your hands as loose as you possibly can on the drumsticks, right? Number one, your fingers can move the stick a lot faster than your wrist can. Number two, it doesn't take nearly as much effort for your fingers to play the sticks at the faster tempos. And as was mentioned before in the beginning, those tight hands playing really tight on the stick will cost you money in drum heads that have to be replaced prematurely, cracked cymbals that have to be replaced prematurely, drumsticks that break prematurely, and the most important part to me, my friends, is the injuries that you're going to take on in your wrist and in your elbows from all that impact from the stick. When it's trying to dissipate the energy that you've driven into it, and it can't, it's actually going to push that energy back up into your arm, and your arm is eventually going to give out. What about the people that play in the traditional grip? Do you have any advice for them? It's like, well, as a matter of fact, I do. It is the exact same concept, and what I want you to be able to see here is the exact same thing. You find that sweet spot on the stick, and an easy way to go about that is just to, kind of like we talked about in the previous video, it's just to bounce check the stick like that, where you get the maximum amount of bounce out of the stick with virtually no effort whatsoever. And what's really cool is once you find that sweet spot on the stick, you're going to find that with just your thumb as a traditional grip player, that you can use just your thumb to keep bouncing that stick. Because remember, on the bounce, right, you're only generating downward velocity and motion, you're not lifting the stick up. So your thumb has to get off the stick quick enough to allow the stick to come back up to the thumb for the next downward motion. So let's just take a look at this real quick, kind of watch what happens. You will see that my hand is not going to make any real movement, that the stick's going to pretty much do all the work, and my thumb is just going to push it down a little bit at the top of the downstroke, and then it's going to hang up at the top waiting for the stick to come back up to it for the following downstroke. So here we go. Let's take a look at this. I'm going to pick up the phone once again, kind of give you guys a few, kind of let you see a few different angles on this. So let's get this stick, I'm going to kind of drop it into place. I'm going to drop that stick into place, get that hand set, and then the thumb is pretty much going to keep everything going from that point on. Right, so you can see that right there. The thumb is pretty much doing all the work, and it's just enough to drive the stick down. It is not lifting the stick off the pad. The thumb is allowing the stick to bounce and meet it at the top, and it meets the stick at the top of the stroke, and then starts the next downstroke. And when you get enough speed or enough velocity on the stick will naturally bounce up, because that's what a stick naturally likes to do. That is the first basic fundamental fact about a stick, is that a stick likes to bounce. Okay, now I am throwing my hand in just because I'm getting so much bounce out of the stick. Alright, so once again, my friends, if you are a traditional grip player, which is a really cool thing, especially in the world of jazz and things like that, right? The world of drumline, this is very applicable as well, right? Keep that hand as loose as you possibly can, right? As the thumb and that index finger are curled around the stick. And then from that point on, right, you're going to find that that stick will naturally bounce up to meet your index finger or to meet your thumb. But that's the real trick. If you clench that thumb and that index finger around the stick, where you're actually turning, kind of like you're turning a doorknob all the time, you will eventually wear your hand out and wear your forearm out, instead of just allowing that stick to naturally bounce on its own. Right? So just by exploiting the bounce of the stick, just by keeping your right hand or keeping your left hand set right there at the fulcrum, the sweet spot of the stick, and keeping your thumb and your index finger as loose as you can around the stick, you are very, very well set up to exploit the stick's natural ability to bounce. And when it comes down to playing the drumsticks, my friends, that's exactly what it is exploiting the drumstick's natural desire to bounce. Look forward to seeing you in the next video. please take the time, leave a note, maybe subscribe to the video, maybe pass it on to your drumming friends, right? But if not, hope you get some good information out of it, and hope you have a good next gig and a good rehearsal session. So with that, that's my rumor, and I'm sticking to it.